I've been a firefighter for almost 15 years now, and the job is just as thrilling as people assume. It also gets scary sometimes, but this is one of the most insane things I've ever witnessed on the job. It was a Friday night in February, and the cold was just on a completely different level. All I wanted to do was be in bed with my wife or something, but I had called in sick the week before, so I had no chance. Don't get me wrong, I love my job, but I also love a great sleep on a cold night. Anyway, a call came for us a house fire, and I was happy to pick that over staring at the printer at the office. We rolled out the way we always did, and when we pulled up, the house honestly didn't look that bad. Just this thin grey smoke leaking out of a window on the second floor. There was also a woman standing outside in a bathrobe, holding a small dog against her chest, telling us that her stepson was still inside. So we went in without wasting any time. The first floor was pretty clear, but by the time we hit the second floor, the smoke had thickened to the point where we needed our masks on. And as we were working our way down the hallway checking rooms, one door stopped me completely. You know, that gut feeling where you know there's something sinister is just about to happen. First thing I noticed was that the lock was mounted on the outside instead of the inside, and I genuinely could not come up with a single reasonable explanation for why a bedroom would even need that. I ended up forcing that door open myself, and the smell hit me before anything else did. Besides all the smoke, there was something in that room that had been sitting there for a long time. But as my flashlight swept across the space, there was almost nothing in it. All I could see was just a bare mattress on the floor, and nothing that suggested a person actually lived there. Then the light landed on a man sitting against the wall, and for a second, I genuinely couldn't process what I was looking at. He was tall, close to my own height, but there was almost nothing left of him. In that moment, I tried not to be sentimental or waste time asking questions, so I got closer to help him. When I got my arm underneath him to lift him, he weighed less than my own gear. Less than a fire hose, honestly. He was still breathing, but just barely. There was soot smeared around his mouth, and I talked to him the entire way down those stairs, asking him to stay with me over and over. Now, I wasn't only saying this to help him, it was also a way for me to process what the hell I was looking at. Once we got him outside, the medics took him from me, and for one brief second his eyes met mine. He didn't look scared at all. He looked almost relieved, like whatever was coming next couldn't possibly be worse than whatever he was leaving behind. We got him into the ambulance, and after the fire was put out, the couple who owned the home were brought in to be questioned. I thought that was the end of my part in this story, but it wasn't, because I ended up following the case afterward. I mean, everybody at work did, and the fire turned out to be the smallest, least insane part of the whole story. It came out that he'd been locked in that room since he was 14 or 15 years old, for 20 whole years, in a space that measured 9 feet by 8 feet. When this first happened, his father used to let him out on weekends to work in the yard, which was apparently the extent of his freedom, until his father passed away, and even that stopped happening. Family members who tried to reach out and check on him said they were pushed away and told he was fine and told to mind their own business. This woman, who was his stepmother, completely cut him off from friends, fun, and a stable, normal life. By the time he was pulled out that night, he weighed just 68 pounds, and doctors later diagnosed him with wasting syndrome on top of PTSD and depression. All this while, he hadn't seen a doctor at all. He was starved and dehumanized in his own home. This man had started the fire knowing that it was one of two things. He would either die in it or escape from that nightmare. If you've ever worked in a hospital, you'll understand when I say that some medical cases are just different. I've seen ignorant mothers, difficult mothers, overbearing mothers, and even negligent ones. But like I said, this was different. A while ago, a little girl named Georgina was brought to our hospital with a seizure disorder that nobody could quite pin down, and she'd already been through months of hospital stays by the time I was seeing her. This girl was 9 years old at the time, but what struck me early on wasn't the seizures themselves. Kids come in with unexplained neurological episodes quite often. It was the pattern around here. But this girl, she kept having these sudden cardiac events that would spike into something more serious, and every single time that it happened, her mother was the only adult in the room. I brought this up casually with a colleague at first, just noting that it seemed odd how often these episodes happened on days her mother was present versus days she wasn't. Weirdly enough, my colleague had noticed the same thing and hadn't said anything either. As time went on, her mother requested a private room constantly, talking about privacy, the child's comfort, and she even insisted on giving medications herself rather than letting nursing staff handle it, which technically happens with some parents and isn't automatically a red flag. So we didn't take it too seriously. She also asked, more than once, whether there were cameras anywhere near the room, because apparently she was concerned about a theft that had happened. And I remember thinking that was a strange thing to fixate on, given everything else going on with her daughter. Every health worker you'll ever meet will tell you that, over time, instinct is something you'll need to do your job better. I got home one morning after a long shift, and I sat on my couch thinking, something just isn't right with this lady. Just that morning, she had told a co-worker and I that we hadn't seen anything yet, almost like she was warning us to be ready for something really bad to happen. Let me just cut to the chase and say that Georgina passed a couple of weeks later, and if that had been the end of the story, this would just be a tragic case file. But it wasn't the end. Her death triggered a toxicology check because there was already a history our hospital and prosecutors needed to account for. Out of all the possible directions we thought the case would take, this one was insanely unexpected. What came back showed a significant concentration of ketamine in her system, a drug nobody on the medical staff had ever administered to her. That single result cracked everything open. It turned out this wasn't the family's first loss. A younger daughter named Milena had died in 2019 at 3.5 years old, and they said it was liver failure. Another daughter, Iris, died in 2021 at 6 months old. They said that one was heart failure. As soon as Georgina's ketamine levels came back, investigators went back and exhumed both of those bodies. They found out that both were found to have died because their oxygen supply was forcefully cut off. Now, the backstory to all of this is that the mother did it because she was trying to keep her marriage together, using her children's medical crises to keep her husband engaged and present. And when that didn't work, she resorted to completely offing them. She still denies all of it, insists the toxicology should be re-examined, insists she's the victim of a rush to judgment. I'd like to think that it's all BS, because after 3 dead children and 3 false examinations, the common factor is her. I'm not one to put my work experiences out there, but I bet you could find this case through a Google search. So I'm just going to tell it the way I experienced it. With this story, I couldn't decide whether to be sad or mad. And for context, I'm a paramedic, so that should tell you how often I encounter strange people and strange cases. This day, we got dispatched for a woman who'd jumped from a 2nd-story window. As we were dispersing, I kinda knew that we would probably be busy for the whole night. In no time, we pulled up to a quiet street, and it was the kind of neighborhood where nothing like this usually happens. Not exactly wealthy, but very comfortable. We found her outside on the ground with injuries to her neck and wrists, conscious, talking, but clearly in bad shape. My partner started working on her immediately and stabilizing what we could stabilize. Then something changed in the tone of the radio traffic, and within a few minutes, we had additional units getting flagged down. Because inside that house, in the basement, there were 3 children, and none of them were responding. Now, I want to be careful here, because this is the part where it would be easy to fill in blanks with assumptions, and I'm not interested in doing that. 2 of those kids were already in cardiac arrest by the time additional crews reached them. We were suddenly not dealing with 1 patient anymore. We were dealing with 4. Things got scary really fast, and you could hear it in how we were all talking. Nobody was panicking exactly. Everybody had a job, and everybody did it, but there was a kind of controlled dread running underneath every transmission. Unfortunately, the 2 older kids didn't make it that day. The youngest, the baby, held on a little longer before he passed a few days later in the hospital. This woman had overdosed her own children. I didn't know any of that in the moment, obviously. In the moment, it was just 4 patients, 3 of them children, 1 adult with serious injuries of her own, and a scene that didn't match anything we were used to. What I found out afterward makes it even more complicated. She was a nurse. By every account, a present mother, someone who, by all appearances, loved her kids. However, she'd also been struggling badly in the months leading up to that night, dealing with postpartum depression. Her family mentioned that the whole thing wasn't being managed well, so she kept cycling through medications and was hospitalized briefly for mental health just weeks before. Now, her defense has leaned entirely into that, arguing she wasn't in her right mind, that this was illness, not intent. Prosecutors have pushed back hard, arguing it was deliberate and planned. I genuinely don't know which of those is true, and I don't think my job that night gave me any special insight into her state of mind. I saw injuries. I saw urgency. I did not see intent, because intent isn't something you can read off a patient during triage. I'd been doing this a long time, and most nights end with some kind of closure, even a sad one. This one didn't. It still hasn't. And I don't think I've ever been this confused by the concept of human psychology. I post dark, real-life stories once or twice a week, so you might want to like and subscribe so you don't miss anything. My name is Elias, and I'll see you soon.